It's no secret that the final season of Dexter, the original series, was widely hated. Not only did we have to face the death of Deborah, but we had to sit through the ridiculous lumberjack ending for Dexter. Then the release of New Blood came, but it never came close to the original show. But Dexter Resurrection was the true redeemer of the franchise. Let's take a look at how Resurrection saved Dexter and left us all waiting for more, starting with its all-star cast. Dexter Resurrection had an almost completely new cast of characters. Dexter finds himself immersed in a world of serial killers headed by a mentally ill billionaire who is obsessed with what they did. With the vibrant and diverse assortment of characters that the writers created, they would need an equally stellar cast to pull them all off. Luckily for the showrunners, they got every actor that they wanted for each character they had in mind. Having Peter Dinklage take on the role of Leon Prater was nothing short of genius. Peter is already known as a Class A actor, but his specific look and energy are what really sold the character of Leon Prater.
Goodness, no, I am just a huge fan.
He had everything that a billionaire megalomaniac needs: the sickly smile, the disturbing eye twitches, the conniving manipulation of everyone around him, using his money like a carrot in front of a horse to keep them racing for his benefit.
I thought a little extra spending money might ease this stressful time.
Peter was the best actor to bring out the full spirit of Leon Prater. His unassuming frame and his deceptively inviting smile couldn't have been portrayed better by any other actor.
I cannot express how excited I am to meet you.
The same can be said for his right-hand woman, Charlotte Brown, played by the amazing Uma Thurman. And the top-tier casting doesn't stop there. Neil Patrick Harris as Lowell was fantastic. Eric Stonestreet as Al, a serial killer, may have seemed an odd choice initially. After all, most people know him for his Emmy Award-winning role in the popular sitcom Modern Family, and that character is a far cry from who and what Al represents. But Stonestreet did it perfectly. David Dastmalchian has played killers in the past, and his naturally gothic nature helped bring the Gemini killers to life in a very satisfying and believable way. As for Mia, Kristen Ritter was the perfect choice. Her naturally flirtatious demeanor and sly mannerisms easily made her the best choice to play the sultry Mamma Mia.
Mamma Mia!
Here we go again.
Oh, look at you.
Hi, honey.
Now that we've seen these amazing actors take on these expertly written roles, it's hard to imagine them being played by anyone else. But this outstanding cast isn't the only reason everyone instantly fell in love with Dexter Resurrection. No, the new cast members aren't the only ones that fans were excited to see, and there are plenty of other reasons Resurrection has successfully brought the Dexter universe back to life. Die-hard fans must have lost it when Quinn and Masuka came to meet Batista. You can call it fan service if you want, but it was refreshing to see their familiar faces after so long. And why shouldn't fans be serviced? It was a nice surprise, and it wasn't overdone. Some shows are stuck in the past, and fans can get bored of the repetitive storylines and scenery, but Dexter Resurrection didn't run into this problem. The majority of the show is set in New York with a slew of new characters, giving us something exciting and unknown to sink our teeth into, while also providing a tasteful nod to what made us fall in love with the show in the first place. It was well placed and well paced. Even the cameos that occur while Dexter is in a coma totally make sense and really shed light on things without hogging the spotlight. It's entirely understandable that Trinity, Miguel Prado, and Dokes would pop into Dexter's subconscious when he's out cold. They are some of the characters that caused him the most anguish and regret. Dokes died because of Dexter's selfishness. Dexter's trust in Miguel led to the death of an innocent woman, which left him no choice but to murder a man he once considered to be his only real friend. And Trinity killing Dexter's wife before he could stop him is probably the thing that haunts Dexter the most. It was exciting to see them and reminded fans of some of the most gripping moments of the original series. That said, Dexter Resurrection has shown it is not afraid of moving on from Miami or the characters we all loved and miss, with one major development. Everyone loved Batista. That much is obvious. He was a wholesome guy and an honest cop. That said, we all knew what would happen to him if he kept going up against Dexter. Very few people have caught on to Dexter and lived to tell the tale. He should have quit before things got too dangerous, but foolishly, Batista was determined to get justice for his fallen friends, so much so that he put his family, his job, job, and ultimately his life on the line to get it. Remember, Batista had a daughter, a new wife, his sister Jamie, and so many friends who loved him and were waiting for him to return home. Not only that, but Dexter also would have preferred that his old friend made it out alive. Even if he hated Dexter, Dexter didn't want to see him die, but that is exactly what happened. This is significant because it brings back the heightened stake that the original show drew us in with. Beloved and important characters dropped like flies in the original series. Sergeant Dokes, Camilla, Rita, Agent Frank Lundy, Captain Maria LaGuerta, and more were killed off throughout the series, often leaving fans' jaws on the floor in the moment of their elimination. New Blood and Original Sin, while entertaining shows in their own right, didn't really bring that shock value. There wasn't a single casualty in either one of those shows that would affect viewers as deeply as seeing Batista die. New Blood tried to achieve this with the death of Coach Logan, but while he was a likable character, we didn't know him long enough for it to have that devastating effect. And Original Sin almost got us there when it looked like Harry's partner Bobby was going to die, but they actually allowed him to live, and even if they hadn't, it would have had the same detachment that was the problem with Logan's death. Even though we like Bobby, we didn't know him too well, and Logan's death was overshadowed by the fact that Dexter had done it, thus breaking his precious code and making viewers recoil at the idea of a man as innocent as Logan dying at the hands of a person we so desperately want to root for. But in Resurrection's bold move to have Batista murdered by Praetor, we were all reminded of the hefty consequences that result from Dexter acting on his dark urges. Before you watch any further, I'm happy to finally announce that I'm releasing the first limited drop of my t-shirts. At the start, there are only 100 available, so make sure you buy them while you can at dtmerch.store. Enjoy the video. In the very first episode of Resurrection, Dexter dreams of Miguel Prado, who informs him that when he gives in to his need to kill, innocent people die too. Perhaps that was foreshadowing of Batista's fate. It was hard to watch, and yet we couldn't look away. From a plot and franchise perspective, Batista's death works as a catalyst. It propels the stakes sky high before the finale. With Batista dead, Dexter loses one of his few remaining points from his past life. There is no more "if I just convinced Batista" or "if he could believe me," because Batista's gone, and he knew the truth before he died. The rage and pain that Dexter felt after watching him die adds depth to Dexter and shows how his emotionality has deepened since leaving Miami and becoming an active father. Finally, this moment is also a sign that the writers of Resurrection are willing to take daring moves. Killing off a legacy character, especially one so beloved, isn't safe, but it strengthens the emotional tension of the series, proving that choices in this universe are real, not just convenient reset buttons. It reaffirms that Dexter Resurrection isn't aiming for nostalgia for its own sake, but seeking to move the story forward in meaningful ways, even if they hurt. Overall, Batista's death helps save Dexter by delivering emotional weight, dismantling comforting illusions in Dexter's moral architecture, raising the stakes for the finale and future storylines, and showing the audience that while legacy definitely matters, sometimes legacy means sacrifice to make room for the new. It turns what could have been a predictable resurrection into a story that feels alive, deeply human, and very dangerous. Harrison's role in New Blood was underwhelming to many fans. In fact, some found him downright annoying during that series. He was seen by many as whiny and sullen, not really what we think of when we think of the Morgan clan. Harry was an interesting man with a speckled past and a unique view of right and wrong. Deb was a spitfire with a heart of gold and the mouth of a sailor. Dexter is, well, Dexter. They're all strong-willed, determined, and incredibly compelling characters. Harrison in New Blood didn't really hit that mark, though. Of course, he was a teenager with a troubled past. His father was the only person he had left in the world, and he abandoned him and never looked back. It makes sense why he would be so angsty, so near insufferable. Still, the Morgans are a fierce bunch, and Harrison just seems so far from that. I know they're not blood related to the Morgans, but still. In Dexter Resurrection, he is shown to be far more decisive and active. He is interested in Resurrection in a way that he simply wasn't in New Blood. Resurrection offers a complete character arc for Harrison, one that's relatable at times as he navigates romantic relationships, his job, and making plans for his future, but it's also action-packed and morally challenging at other times. That is far more reflective of the Morgan family we have come to know and love. Harrison's character is far more dynamic this time around. His storyline much better paced. If this series represents resurrection for Dexter, it equally represents redemption for Harrison Morgan. But his role isn't the only one that Dexter Resurrection does better than other series in the franchise. The original series had 8 seasons, meaning 8 big bads in total, but not all were equally as riveting. There are less memorable ones like Lila West and the members of the Bear Girls gang, and there were unforgettable ones like the Ice Truck Killer and Trinity. Kurt Caldwell made for a very interesting big bad in New Blood, and many people were surprised to discover that Aaron Spencer was the big bad in Original Sin. That said, Resurrection really made its mark with Leon Prater as the big bad of the first season. What's more impressive is that Resurrection was able to give us plenty of incredibly interesting little bads in the form of Prater's dinner guests. Mia, Lowell, and Gareth were all captivating in their own ways, and having Dexter best them all was incredibly satisfying. They'll stick out in our minds for years to come, but this was an area the original series sometimes struggled in. I mean, with 8 seasons, it would be nearly impossible to hit the mark every single time. Still, there were some seasons that got it exactly right, while others had little bads so forgettable you probably need to watch our video on every Dexter kill just to remember that they were in the show at all. And in New Blood, the little bads were even more forgettable without the excuse of multiple seasons drowning them out. The fact is that the minor villains in New Blood were underdeveloped and boring. Kurt Caldwell really saved the intrigue of the series by being such a menacing presence. Matt Caldwell was a pretty hateable guy, and that may make him stick out a bit, but he's no Gareth or Lowell. Dexter Resurrection more than makes up for these shortcomings. The villains it puts out are so gripping with all of their ego and insanity that they make the little bads from previous series look amateurish. Despite being abhorrent individuals, many fans wanted to see more of Lowell, Mia, and the gang. They were just that good. And despite how captivating the known villains were, Resurrection also provided us with an unidentified killer that is just as thrilling. Resurrection's introduction of the mystery of the New York Ripper is another way they have successfully revitalized Dexter. The New York Ripper is a currently inactive serial killer whose identity was never discovered by police. His methods were some of the most disturbing out of all the killers in the show, and despite having not killed anyone in years, the perpetrator continues to call the family members of his victims to taunt them. It's very reminiscent of the Ice Truck Killer. He was a murderer who targeted women. His identity also remained a mystery for most of the first season, and he left his victims' bodies out in the open. This was mostly to jog Dexter's memory, but also to taunt the police and disturb the public. By revealing the New York Ripper's identity in the season finale, Resurrection has ensured a huge audience for the second season as we all wait to see who catches him first and how. The cliffhangers set up perfectly to grab our attention and let us know that it will be revisited in the next season. They strike a similar chord with Rapunzel. After taking care of every other member of Leon's serial killer circle, Dexter set his sights on Al. Unfortunately for Dexter, Al was one step ahead of him and skipped town before he could get him on a kill table. As frustrating as that was, there is still a glimmer of hope that Dexter will get the chance to take him out. Keep in mind that Rapunzel is a heinous monster who preys on women with ponytails, strangling them to death before chopping off their hair, so he is just as deserving of Dexter's wrath as any of the victims before him. But Al was smarter than he seemed. Rather than meet up with Dexter one-on-one, he blew him off, drove back to his home in Wisconsin, refusing to tell Dexter where before tossing his phone out his car window. He wasn't about to take any chances after seeing what happened to everyone else, but his attempt to stay anonymous was in vain because there was a file on him in Leon Prater's secret cabinet. It revealed his full name right on the front, and given how efficient Charlie usually is at vetting, there's no doubt that his address is in there as well. And when Dexter looks over the files he took from the vault, Al's is right on top. It's clear that Dexter is probably going to find Al and take him out in due time, but the when and the how, that's what we are all anxious to learn. Resurrection keeps the franchise alive with cliffhangers like these. Everyone will be returning and new audiences will come pouring in too, no doubt. From the insane plot, the impossibly amazing cast, the high stakes, and breath-baiting cliffhangers, it's clear that Dexter Resurrection came out with something to prove. Dexter hasn't lost its luster after all. It's obvious from the ratings that everyone was pleasantly surprised and relieved to see Dexter Morgan back in full force. The writers didn't pull any punches with the death of Batista, and Harrison's impressive growth is something we could have only dreamt of at one point. They stuck the landing in every important area, from the soundtrack and and the visuals to the nostalgia and the evolving plot. If anyone doubted the staying power of Dexter before, they'd have a hard time doing so after watching Dexter Resurrection. Resurrection is good enough to turn critics into fans and passive viewers into superfans. It more than makes up for the less than impressive finales of previous installments, and now we all have to wait impatiently to be graced with a second season. Fingers crossed it's as good as or better than the first, but that is a pretty high bar because Dexter Resurrection has really outdone itself and completely saved the Dexter franchise as a whole. If you liked this video, be sure to check out our breakdown of every kill Dexter performed and let us know in the comments if you were as impressed by the first season as we were. Remember to like, share, and subscribe